One of the big topics of discussion since the beginning of Dragon Ball Super in July of 2015 has been the animation. There's been great animation, there's been not so good animation, and on this video I thought it'd be a good idea to really look at some of the misconceptions that a lot of people in the fandom have about how Super's produced and how the animation actually is done. Like with anything in Dragon Ball, there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of people out there saying stuff that they misunderstand. So I want to kind of make this a video about just figuring everything out and explain to folks how it actually works. So I can't talk about animation without having this man who's with me right now. I would be foolish not to. All right, please welcome back to Geekdom 101, the undisputed champion of the earth when it comes to animation, the most knowledgeable animation expert in the fandom, Anime AJ.
I'm so used to your intros now that they kind of don't even phase me anymore. They just sort of like bounce off. Like I'm at like max capacity ego now. Like you filled me up so much every time I've come on. That sounds very wrong. Let me reword that.
We can't exploit the Zenkai ego boost anymore because your body's too used to it.
No, I'm maxed out now.
We're talking about animation misconceptions. Brand new arc beginning in Dragon Ball Super. A lot of people have said, AJ, that all hands are on deck for this one, and I do think there's something to that. I do think Toei really wants this thing to work. So they're going to do the best they can, but that doesn't mean that every episode is going to look like freaking Studio Ghibli. We cannot accept that. So I want to talk about, first and foremost, the production of Dragon Ball Super. One of the things that you and I have talked about off air has been that Toei as a company, not just the Dragon Ball Super staff, but Toei as a whole has been ridiculously swamped with work. Toei seems to be just completely hammered with projects, and that's why sometimes Super does not look as good as maybe it should. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So basically, I made a video like, I don't know, 7-8 months ago now that explained sort of why Super had such a shaky start, why there was bad animation quite regularly compared to now. And the reason for that was that, one, they sort of put Super on air too soon. They didn't have enough pre-production time. And I spoke about that in depth about how
it was rushed.
It was very rushed. They had sort of half the time that a normal anime would have prior to being on air. And pre-production is so important because you are making episodes in that time. You're giving yourself a buffer of episodes before the thing gets on air, at which point you're sort of fighting against the clock to get things done. And so that kind of screwed them over for a long time. And you can see, obviously, the first 4 episodes of Super look great. And then by the time they get to episode 5, everything collapses in on itself because there just wasn't enough of a buffer. And that's a big episode with a lot of fighting. And that takes some time to do. And it just kind of fell to pieces. And so time kind of has everything to do with everything. And I think you see a lot of people, they get excited like, Super's taking a week off. That means the episode is going to look really good next week. And that's generally not how it works.
Completely false. Yeah, that's not how it works. Yeah, because we got that a lot, man, how, should Super be every 2 weeks? Should Super take seasonal breaks? I think if they took seasonal breaks like American TV shows do, maybe that would help.
Oh, that absolutely would.
But not taking 1 week off.
Yeah, like 1 week here and there is beneficial. It absolutely is, because obviously, I mean, it's more time. That's the most logical thing. But it doesn't mean that the episode that comes directly after that 1 week is going to be fantastic. What it usually means is that something way later down the line, something more important, is probably going to look better as a result, because you have obviously the people who are in charge of scheduling animators, putting resources into certain places. It's their job to know where to put this time. So it doesn't necessarily when the week comes doesn't necessarily correlate with the episode that's coming next as well. So yeah, and the
episodes are still rushed. I mean, we've heard stories from Thomas in Tokyo, Thomas Romaine, and other people about how in Japan anime in general is many times rushed. Sometimes animation will get finished, or episodes will actually get finished right before they air. Like, not like an hour before, but I mean like the day before sometimes. And it's crazy. It's not like how it is here, in the US and in other places in the world. It's just the anime production is crazy over there. Now, before I go any further, I want to say, if you want to know more about animation, you need to pause the video and go to Anime AJ's channel and punch that subscribe button and watch the video. AJ's like the only guy. Well, Wes does it too, but AJ has subscribe to both of them really, but definitely go to AJ because he's our guest today. He has so many deconstructions of the different animators and directors. So if you want to know how everything works so that you become just, you just know more about the series, definitely go over there. So I want to talk to you about the schedule, okay? I believe you told me that Super used to be on a 4-week schedule. Can you elaborate on that? Is it now up to 6 weeks again?
Oh yeah, so Super, to begin with, Super was on 6 weeks, which is fine, and that's mostly average. I should point out that these are estimates. We're basing this. So let me basically explain first of all how long-running shows
So what
are
you're telling
made.
me, AJ, is that they already know who Girl Broly is.
Yes,
that's what you're telling me.
They know these things.
Yeah.
So basically, the way that a long-running show keeps afloat is, rather than sort of having a whole bunch of animators and throwing them at loads of random episodes, they have teams, and these teams are on rotations. So one team will do episode 1, and then once they finish that, they will move on and they'll be handling an episode 6 weeks ahead, while the next team is doing the episode after theirs. It's not quite as a crazy free-for-all as something that is 12 episodes long is, for example. So there's a lot more structure there. So anyway, basically we guess the times that episodes have based on how long the rotation times are. And generally that's not a bad estimate, though there are sometimes complications. Sometimes a storyboard might not be finished in time. So animators are kind of sat there well, I guess I should help someone on another episode right now. There are little things that sort of make that not necessarily 100% true, but again, it's a fairly safe estimate. So back to what we were saying, 6 weeks was how it was. Then when we got to Resurrection F, when everything was crumbling and going to absolute shit, it was down to 4 weeks, and that was terrible. That was why things just melted. People were melting on screen. It was not nice, and so
literally.
Yeah, it was not great. And so from then on, obviously, through sort of clever planning, outsourcing is a big thing, which obviously means you give an entire episode
they have
to another
animators.
studio.
Yeah, they have it in the Philippines, in Hong Kong,
Korea,
I think.
yeah.
Korea, yeah.
So that's helped. Anyway, so the reason that the Future Trunks arc was actually so solid is that your average episode was 6 weeks, which used to be what the good episodes had, and your major episodes were reaching all the way up to sometimes 10, 11 weeks. So there was some huge schedule fixes going on there. Some very good creative planning there. For example, you had a wonderful episode in episode 63, and then 64 was just, there was basically no animation at all. Yet 65 and 66 were great. And that episode 64, that bought some time to allow for the other episodes to obviously, improve and polish themselves and have enough time to be to the standard that they needed to be. So they've definitely got better when it's come to that. They've definitely started using the weeks that we've had in the past where it's been off. And yeah, outsourcing helped a lot. So yeah, we're better when it comes to the schedule. That was a bit of a ramble. I hope that made sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And so now with Super going forward, I mean, you're going to have some episodes that are going to look better than others, worse than others. And I think a lot of people, accredit this to the budget. I think that people believe that some episodes of Super, for example, the big fights and the big climaxes, have a bigger budget than, say, the slice of life ones. But AJ, some of the slice of life ones look really, really good. So can you elaborate on the budget behind how the episode production works?
Sure. So I guess because of the way sort of Hollywood works, how a lot of Western productions are done, budget means sort of very, very little actually when it comes to Japanese animation. It is all about time, as I keep talking about. And I like to bring up the analogy with a restaurant. if you pay a chef sort of like $400, for example, and you give them 5 minutes to make your meal, it doesn't matter that you've paid them $400.
That's
You're
right.
going to get
That's
a 5-minute meal out of them. There's only so much they can do in that time, and giving those chefs $400 doesn't suddenly make them better chefs. So the quality of animation, the quality of sort of cuts in like scenes in episodes themselves isn't to do with money. It's to do with talent, and it's to do with time.
And so it's kind of like the whole thing where, okay, so what you're telling me is that even the well animated episodes with Tate, Sheeta, all these big shots, they're not quote over budget. I hate using that word, but I can't think of one that makes more sense than that.
Yeah, I mean, like don't get me wrong, Sheeta gets paid more than someone with less experience, someone less skilled. Like that's a factor to a small degree, but it's not big enough to make the difference that people think it is. Like you hear a lot of people going, oh, well, that scene there looked amazing. They must have put all the budget into that one, but this one here looked bad. They must have, skimped on the budget here. That's not really how that works.
It's more so the budget of who they pay and how they pay them, right? Like that's kind of more what it is than just the budget of the actual episode.
Yeah, so like for example, episode 66, which is the one that everybody loves, it has Sheeta in it. It's the big Vegito fight. They may not love the story content, but it looks good.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, like that may not necessarily have cost more than something like episode 68, which was outsourced to another company and has a gigantic staff list. It costs a lot of money to pay people. Yeah, no, it still looked good, of course. But it obviously isn't episode 66, and when you're paying loads of people, it's going to rack up the costs. They go quite high when you have gigantic staff lists, and the episodes that look really good tend to have quite small staff lists, and so chances are that's probably not costing quite the same.
Now, obviously, Toei is conscious of this. So, hypothetically speaking, let's say we're doing the universe survival arc, which they are in production of right now. And they know there's a big fight coming. Like Toriyama's, bullet points say, all right, we have a fight coming up here between so-and-so. They know, all right, this episode's going to get done. It's going to be premiering on television in April, let's just say. I'm using a random month. We got to bring in Sheeta to do this. That's pretty much how, because they know that this guy's going to deliver quality.
Yeah, absolutely. So the series director will look at the episodes and say, okay, so we're probably going to want this person here and that person there, and we'll probably skimp a little bit on an episode here, so it allows more time for this episode here. Like they plan accordingly, and basically, let's just say that when it came to the Universe 6 arc, they didn't plan. When it came to the beginning of the Future Trunks arc, they didn't sort of plan particularly well. So between Universe 6 ending and Future Trunks beginning, we had that copy Vegeta arc, which was quite short.
Yeah, 3 episodes.
But it was packed full of action, which is one of the silliest things to do for a filler arc when your schedule is bad. You want to pad out between arcs with episodes that are just very, very low effort, not much action, very dialogue heavy, and you want to generally try and outsource those so that your in-house animators can, quickly scribble out their contributions and then move on to the stuff that matters. And what makes me quite optimistic, actually, for the tournament arc that's coming up is that we've just had 2 months of filler and barely any action. And almost every single episode has involved outsourcing.
And they looked great. The baseball episode looked amazing. The Arale one looked great, too. Honestly.
Like there definitely seems like there is a conscious effort going on here to try and, again, fix their schedule even more to make sure that this upcoming arc can actually cope. Because even though a lot of people love the Future Trunks arc animation, let's not pretend that things weren't starting to fall apart a little bit at the end there. Like 65 was nice, but some dodgy stuff in there towards the end. Obviously, you had 64. There was definitely some trouble towards the end there. And so it seems like they definitely took these 2 months to sort of sort their shit out. I mean, that's me being optimistic. I may be totally wrong. You never know with Super.
We don't really know what's going on. It's just based on the history of animation and what you've researched.
Exactly, and at the time that the Future Trunks arc ended, they added a second series director, which kind of scared me a little bit because the last time that happened, the other one ended up leaving.
Chioka?
Yeah.
Let's talk about hand-drawn versus digital animation. Why does Dragon Ball Super not look like Z? A lot of people believe that, Z was done. Obviously, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z started in 86, finished in 90. Well, if we count GT, 97. And so it does look different, obviously. But I think I get the question a lot, man. Why does Super is it all done on computers now? Like, what is the difference between Super and Z?
So one of the biggest misconceptions, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that animation, for the most part in Japan, in the large majority of companies, including Toei, including Dragon Ball Super, it's done by hand. It's still hand drawn because it's expensive to do digital animation. A lot of people think, it's cheap. But if you think about it, you have to pay for computers for all of your stuff. You have to pay for the licenses of the software that they would be drawing in. Then you have to pay for all of the tablets as well. That's really, really, really expensive. And so generally, the animation in Japan just sticks to pencil and paper and a desk in a corner of a room. Like that's cheap, and that's how it is, and that's just how it's done. Yeah, old school. And so when people talk about things being digital now, what they really mean is the coloring. The hand-drawn stuff gets scanned in and it gets auto-traced, basically auto-vectorized, and then it gets colored and, has all the post-processing done, and bam, it gets thrown out onto your TV screens, and it looks as though it was drawn on a PC, but it's not.
So how did they color it back in the day?
So back in the day, everything was done on cells, and I guess to get back to your question, I know you asked me why do things look different. To answer that, basically, there are character designers. I'm sure those of you who are big fans of Dragon Ball Z know that obviously the Saiyan arc doesn't look anything like the Buu arc. Like the characters look totally different, and of course
especially Vegeta. That's the big
exactly.
one.
Like that obviously reflects Toriyama's manga. Like that's how it looks. But one of the other reasons for it is that the character designers changed. Back in the start of Dragon Ball Z, you had Maeda as the character designer. By the time you got to the Buu arc, you had Nakatsuru, and you also had Yamamuro doing the movies. They were the character designers there. And so they decided this is how the characters need to look, and the animators then adhere to that. And then you get to GT, and Nakatsuru did everything there, and there's a big change.
I want to clarify something real quick. Some people are going to say, well, what about Toriyama? Yes, it is based on Toriyama's original designs, but they still have to have a character designer for the anime, not just for the non-manga characters, but I guess the word is to make it to scale. Like, can you explain that too also, like why they even need somebody there for that?
So basically, drawing a still image is very, very different from animating it. And so you have a character designer there to sort of make the designs animation friendly. That's their aim. They don't necessarily always achieve that, and I will talk about that in a bit. But generally, their aim is to give animators a solid reference. So you end up with like a full body shot from like the front and the side and the back, and then you have close-ups, and then you have different expressions for all of the characters. And it's basically just this big database for animators to refer to when they're animating, so that you actually have consistency between each episode.
Yeah. Okay, and that's why, because a lot of people were like, wait a minute, why don't they just use Toriyama's models? But nowadays it's a little bit different because there is no manga, okay? So, well, there is a manga, but there is no original source manga like it used to be. So the fight scenes now for Super are not like back in the day. You had these iconic fight scene panels that would get animated into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but now those panels don't really exist, especially with Totaro being somewhat behind the anime. So they have to pretty much kind of make it themselves, and you got to have more of a staff to do that because now you're making it from scratch, if that makes sense. Like with the movies.
Yeah, so basically, so to finish off what I was gonna say, because I kind of got sidetracked and totally forgot because I'm dumb. When I was talking about animation-friendly designs, if you look at some of Toriyama's sort of illustrative art, the muscles are like incredibly complex. And if you think about animation, there has to be a degree of fluidity there. They have to be able to like move and express themselves in ways that are difficult and sometimes totally impossible if your character designs are just too detailed. If you look at the new Pokemon anime, the reason that is so simplified now, which I know a lot of fans are upset by, but it's a good thing, I promise. I'm sure if you've seen the animation now, you understand. But basically, when those were announced, all of the animators who I follow on Twitter, the Japanese animators, were just praising it. They're like, "Oh my god, this is fantastic," because it's so simple and it gives them so much freedom of movement. And so that's why you basically have those transitions. And the reason that Dragon Ball looks different now is because Tadayoshi Yamamuro, he was, again, like I mentioned, the character designer for the movies on Z. His style has kind of sort of gone to shit, which I will cover in my own video next week.
You and him are going to be exchanging Christmas gifts soon, I hear. So
yeah, we're going to have some fun. But basically,
dinner.
People ask like, oh, why do characters look skinny now? Why is the hair smaller? Why does everyone look shiny? Why are things rounder? It's because of Yamamuro's character designs. So yeah, I will. That's why it looks different. It's different. It's the character designer sort of changing his style, and that obviously doesn't appeal to a lot of us.
And Toriyama changed his style too a little bit. We do have to.
He did.
We got to be honest about that. Yeah.
And I absolutely would love it if the character designer would take Toriyama's current designs, because they're actually very, very animation friendly. You'll see that they're fairly low detail, and they would actually do some wonders, especially when it comes to sort of animators trying to scribble things out on a bad schedule. But anyway, to go back to what you were saying about storyboards, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. I'm sorry.
Nah, that's what you do, bro. This is by the way, folks, this is the Kanzenshu Rookie of the Year for 2016. I'm going to nominate you to win that award.
Oh, good. I didn't even know it existed, but I'll take it.
It didn't exist until just a minute ago. So
okay.
You're the winner, though. I think I'm not allowed to vote, so
I'm the only nominee. So I think I'm going to win.
I think you will.
Good odds. So yeah. Anyway, so what you were saying about obviously the storyboard. The storyboards are, when people talk about choreography, what they mean is storyboarding. The storyboard decides the choreography, and why obviously the animators take that choreography and how they execute it. Depends on their skill and their style as an animator, how things sort of move and how the fight is structured is all storyboard. And so obviously back on Z, the storyboards were fairly easy to do because they just had Toriyama's manga right there flipping through the pages. Well, this looks nice and we'll take this and we'll roll with it, and it was all great. Super obviously doesn't have that, as you said. And storyboards can take quite a long time to do, sometimes like 3-4 weeks even.
And some people think that Toriyama actually storyboards Super, and that's not the case at all. We got to kill that misconception.
So the storyboards that we've seen, we have been very lucky that some of the animators have sort of gone and sold their storyboards on various Japanese auction sites, which is probably a sign that they're not paid very well if they want money for bits of paper. But what we've seen is that the storyboards are incredibly rushed. I'll give you some screenshots. You can put it in the video to see how unbelievably scribbled out and basic these storyboards are as a result of being so rushed. And that's a reason why quite a lot of the early fights just weren't good, because animators had no reference. They had nothing to look at. Whereas I have another example from the Future Trunks arc where the storyboard is a lot more detailed. I mean, I should make it clear that obviously storyboards are in general not the most detailed things in the world, but yeah, I'm sure you can see on your screens now that it's that should definitely show you what the schedule was like and why some of the storyboarding, why some of the fights haven't been so good.
Anyways, folks, everybody check out Anime AJ, a wealth of knowledge on animation, specifically Dragon Ball, but he talks about other stuff too once in a while. I'm going to leave a link to his channel down below, and everybody can check him out. Also, if you haven't checked out on the Kanzenshu message board, AJ has the animation guide for Dragon Ball Super. There's also a wealth of information in that guide as well. It's called the Super Animation Catalog, where you can learn about the work that some of these gentlemen have done on which particular episode and kind of compare and contrast kind of how it works. So
as Geekdom said, we have a nice big list that I've put together sort of over the past year and a bit. How long's Super been on the air now? Quite a while.
July 2015.
Yeah, long time. So basically, for every single episode, I have created a little entry that will show you who animated it, what their style looks like, some little tidbits about the about the episode. And then, of course, if you ever want to know anything, ever want to ask me anything, sign up to the forums and come talk to us. We've got loads of friendly people there who know their stuff. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes,
it's been fun.
And also one more very important thing. If you have animation questions for AJ, I'm going to start a thread in the comment section of this video where you can leave your animation questions. Leave them down there in the thread. And then AJ may come back on his channel and do like a Q&A with those questions. So you'll have that there. You know, if you want to talk to AJ directly, you can always go to his Twitter. But I'm still going to put that thread down there in case AJ wants to answer questions there. So it's going to be ask AJ anything about animation, reply to this thread, and that's where it'll be.
Yeah, ask anything. I'll try and answer it as best as I can.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you guys later.